Hey everybody, today we are here with Heidi Chance. I'm so excited to get to talk to you. You have when I look at your bio and all that you've done, it's like a CVS receipt to me. It's like just the longest list of accomplishments and so many cool things. And for me as a younger female in this field, it's definitely been inspiring to look at you and all you've done with your career. So I can't wait to get to know you and talk to you. But Heidi, if you don't mind, for anyone who's listening who doesn't follow you yet, or doesn't know you, will you give a quick bio about who you are? And then we will dive back the layers and get a little deeper after that.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. My name's Heidi Chance, and I am a retired detective from Phoenix Police Department. I actually spent 25 years with Phoenix PD. Looks like I started when I was 12. If you see me, thank goodness. I'm aging well. And then I retired in October of 21, and I started my own business. And I'm very passionate about human trafficking because that's where most of my career was spent, working undercover as a female fighting human trafficking. So that is where my passion is, and that's where I kind of moved on from one career onto my own business and another career. So that's where I'm at.
That's amazing. And I just want you to know, I respect you so much. I've dabbled in the human trafficking, and I took classes on it. And I know that, I'm sure we'll get into it, but I know that it goes really deep and there's a lot of scary things in the dark web and all of that. And for you to put yourself out there and tackle these hard things that a lot of people I feel don't want to touch because it's so hard, I seriously respect you so much. But we're going to go get a little deeper now with you. So you said you're a detective. Give us a little background on your policing career and maybe how you went to detective and what you did as a detective at your department.
Yeah. So I actually started with Phoenix PD at 18 years old. There was a new opportunity for a cadet training program, and I had graduated high school in May, and by September of 96, I was working for Phoenix PD as a civilian cadet. It was a unique position that they had just brought back. Prior to, they didn't have any females, so I was the first female ever trainee cadet. And batch number 2, I actually have the badge. It has a number 2.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. Being 18 and wearing a light blue shirt, driving a fully marked police car. If you've ever been to Arizona in the Phoenix area, Phoenix is actually the 5th largest city in the United States. It's underwhelming when you go to big cities like New York, but it is actually a big city. We're not landlocked, and it's a large land area. Lots of residents here. A lot of people visit. Really decent weather most of the time, despite the summer. And so basically, as a cadet, I was responsible for accidents, non-life-threatening accidents, dusting for fingerprints, taking photos, doing female searches, those kind of things. But driving a fully marked police car, I would get flagged down all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And all I had was a radio, a baton, handcuffs, and pepper spray.
Wow. Do they do that anymore or no?
They do, but it's in a different way. It's not because I was solo by myself for quite a while. And I turned 20 and a half. And then I went into the academy and turned 21 3 weeks before I graduated in the academy. So it was a really good experience. It got me all the radio codes and area and police procedures and all of those things. I had an advantage over everyone else going into the academy. So it was like a lateral transfer. But right. It was one of those things. And then when I went through the academy and graduated, I chose to go to a different precinct because I didn't want to be known as, the accident girl. Yes, that's the precinct I was in. But I don't like taking accidents, okay?
Yeah, they're like, you're really good at this. Don't you want to take this?
Yeah, so I moved into a pretty residential precinct, very busy, one of the busiest in Phoenix, Maryville Precinct, and grew up as a cop in Maryville Precinct. And I spent 10 years there before I moved to the human trafficking unit. But while there at the precinct, obviously, besides patrol, I held a position as a school resource officer, a community action officer, and then several temporary assignments to the vice unit, which is what it was called back then. And now it's the human exploitation and trafficking unit.
Wow. That's amazing. I did community policing too. So
Yeah.
we have that in common.
Yeah.
What struggles did you face as a, well, it sounds like you might have faced some already, but like when you were young or new or older on the job, what struggles did you face as like a female in this career? And it seems like you're really like a strong, like independent, like chasing the next step. Like, did people like judge you for that, or were you able to clear this path on your own?
I think as a female officer, your reputation really, really is important. Most people have certain perceptions of female officers, that they're there looking for a husband, or that they are, not capable. And so really investing in your reputation. I mean, I've definitely early on had an officer ask for a second backup when he heard me answer for a backup, which is pretty standard. I was coming from where I was the only female on a shift, the whole shift, 3 different precinct areas. I'm the only female. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think when I retired in October of 21, they held a female event, a recruiting event, and we only had 13% female at Phoenix PD.
Wow.
So it's where you really have to earn your reputation and maintain, a level of professionalism and, really kind of almost go over and above and beyond sometimes to, earn that reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so in that sense, do you have any advice for female officers that maybe want to get into detective work or get into human trafficking at their department? Is there any like classes maybe they can take, or what advice could you lend?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Your reputation extends beyond just with your peers. Social media is different now, and when I was first starting, we didn't have anything, I think, but MySpace. And then later on, we had Facebook, but now we have so many other things. And I just really want to offer advice about being a female and we are being seen 24/7, as you know, as an officer. You're not just an officer when you have the uniform on. And if you're posting pictures of yourself, bikini shots, whatever, fine. But if it's, posing on a bed with your butt up in the air and a song, those kind of images I've seen female officers post. And just as long as you know that if the defense attorney wants to bring that into a courtroom and show the jury your butt up in the air and a thong on a bed, they're going to do that. So you really need to not only watch what you post, because we could get in trouble and get fired over it, but your reputation as a female officer posting provocative images and inappropriate images could be used against you when you are trying to portray a detective undercover. I've had a female officer, I literally had to tell her, you're not going to come do undercover work with us until you take that shit off your Facebook. And don't want to see it again. And apparently I wasn't the only person who also told her that. It was command staff that also told her she's being inappropriate. And it really just makes all of us look bad. All of us female officers look like, we're unprofessional. And it really does not help if you want to get in an undercover capacity. But in training-wise, yes, I would, when I first started, I didn't have like an undercover school to attend. I kind of just got thrown on the corner and told, this is the conversation you need to accomplish. There you go. And that's it. And so since doing that, I've developed undercover schools, and I actually continue to, even after retiring, as part of my business. I have one coming up in September that I want to share information about it. But, try to attend as many conferences as possible. Undercover work is super exciting, super fun, but highly competitive. And so if you're going to compete against other female officers for that position, what do you have more than just detective certification? What have you done? I am very, very competitive. I'm a Capricorn.
Me too.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I show up to an oral board with an entire bound notebook, one for each one that I went to Kinko's and had made for each one of the people who were on the board interviewing me. And it had my resume. It had examples of reports I've written, specific prostitution related reports. It had examples of, things that I saw that we need to change or fix.
Yes.
Those kind of things, all in this, and conferences I attended, all of that in an actual, and they were like, jaw drop, because no one's really done that before.
Right.
That idea from one male officer, but it's not a common thing. But you have to really, really shine in those interviews. And, the only way that you can shine is if you prepare and have that all going on in your background. Do temporary shadows, attend all the conferences, keep the certificates, document any reports that you've done. Those kind of things will help you.
All of that is great advice. But I think also, like, just saying, like, document your reports. I think when we're out there, like on road patrol, like right now I'm on road patrol, and we're out there doing reports that relate to all this, that we're sending over to detectives to follow up. And I think that's a really good point you make. Like, even just me, I can, bookmark all of these reports that I have done in relation to maybe the next step I want to take. And so that when I get to that place, I can look back and see, okay, here's my reports in relation to this, and print those out and have that there. So that's great. And that's something that I've never even thought of.
Yeah. So like if you continuously respond to robberies and you want to go to robbery as a detective, or auto theft, or,
right.
Those kind of things, for sure.
Instead of looking through thousands of reports that you wrote over the years, you have it already.
You'll never find it all unless you threw it out.
Yeah. So bookmark those really good reports in those certain areas that you want to do and follow up on, and keep it in a file. And I think that's awesome advice. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
How did you decide to work in human trafficking? You kind of mentioned you're thrown into it. So was it something you really wanted to do, or did it kind of land on your plate?
I used to joke that I always wanted to be Heidi Ho, but that's inappropriate. But no, I was actually a school resource officer, and I was at the school, and I don't get to take the car home, so I had to turn the keys in at the precinct. And I was walking past the juvenile holding area, and there were, there was a male and female in custody. The male was an adult, the female was a juvenile. And as I walked past, I recognized her because she was a former student of mine when she was in 7th grade. And I pretty much said, "Hey, why are you in trouble?" And she recognized me as the officer at the school. And, she was kind of an asshole to the male detectives, but she decided to talk to me because we kind of knew each other.
Right.
She said she was in trouble for prostitution. And, she was only 16, almost 17 years old on that day. And I was blown away. I'd already been a cop for 7, 8 years by then, and I didn't realize that juveniles were getting involved in this. And this was back in like 2006-ish, 2007. So that's what really sparked my interest into pursuing that. And then at that time, they were asking for female officers to come in and work with the unit, the vice unit, and that's the street prostitution operations. They would have those every now and again. And so I started doing that, and I really enjoyed it, and that's how it happened.
That's an incredible story. Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine you seeing her and being like, that was one of my like students, like someone I just saw as a young kid. Wow. Yeah. So what do you do now as a human trafficking educator? I know you do a lot, but if you could sum it up, what do you actively do now after you've retired and done so much for your community? What do you do now as a human trafficking educator?
Yeah. So I spent time at Phoenix PD doing what I'm doing now, but for them, where they would send me to, hospitals or hotels or community meetings, those kind of things. And I developed a passion for wanting to continue public speaking and continue educating, as well as law enforcement training. Like I said, I hosted several undercover schools, and I did a entire training, like an 8-hour full day, just me class that I developed for Arizona Post.
Amazing.
That was sponsored by Arizona Post and the McCain Institute. And that was something that was recorded, and it was given to every officer, required training at Phoenix PD. And then I've since done that same training for other agencies in Arizona. And so being passionate about that, and really I have so much to share. Like, I literally have done so much and been in some sticky situations and messed stuff up and done stuff wrong and learned from mistakes. And if I don't share that, that is really detriment to, my peers, my fellow brothers and sisters. So I feel really called to continue to share that. And so since retiring in October of 21, I actually went over to be a special agent with Arizona Department of Gaming, which was another undercover position. I had no idea there was all this illegal gambling happening outside of the reservations. We have casinos on tribal lands here, but there was a lot of illegal gambling happening. And I was really having fun, but I was really bored at gaming. And hopefully my old boss, who's my old partner in Vice, was actually my supervisor at gaming. Hopefully he never hears this, but I was kind of bored. So I decided in March of 22 to open up a website and start doing my own thing on the side, like a, still full-time employee for Department of Gaming, but my own business. And it started with my wanting to make an online class for the community. Because part of why the human trafficking successes that I've had is because of juries that really understand what human trafficking is and can wrap their head around me testifying that a victim, who I'm describing is walking down the side of the road with a phone in their hand, they're a victim, they're trapped and not free to leave. And people's perceptions of victims of this crime have to be, are that they're, locked in a bedroom or kept in a hotel and the bed or something. And it's really not like that. And so continuing educating the public so that we can have the outcomes that I've had, where I've put traffickers away for over 100 years. And that doesn't happen unless we've got juries that are informed. And so I decided, early on to do that. And I developed this online class. I call it the Power of Awareness, because I've seen this. I've really seen it. From when I first started, we were getting bullshit plea offers for 6-7 years. And now we've got hundreds of years. And that's only because of juries understanding and finding these people guilty. But then I wrote a book, which recently came out.
Yes.
I wrote a book because in doing all these presentations to the community and the outreach I'm doing, I keep telling everyone, you have to have these conversations. You have to have them earlier than you think. When I first started, the average age of entry into human trafficking was 15, the age. It is now 13, and it's inching closer and closer to 12, 11 years old. And that means parents need to start talking to their kids about all this stuff because of the internet and games and apps and social media and all these things. They need to start talking to them like 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
Or even earlier. If you're going to give them a device or let them play in a game, you should have already talked to them about what all the dangers are.
Yeah.
And so it's like a, super important thing to me to tell parents to have these conversations, but I never said how. And so that's what the book is, how to have the conversation. And I mirrored it kind of like how I would do an interview with a victim, the building the rapport. And then you go into the facts of the indirect or direct confrontation. And then you get to the nitty gritty and you close the interview. But I kind of mirror it like how I would do a victim interview. And, it really is a plan of how to do these conversations.
Yeah. And you would recommend for your book, like parents to buy it, or also like officers as well? Like, because it seems like it teaches you a lot.
Well, I think As far as parents, for sure, caregivers, there's a lot of grandparents there to know, raising their grandkids because their own
Yes.
children are, not around in custody, in jail, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's really for them, but for sure, I mean, I talk about sextortion, luring a minor for sex, grooming. Officers could definitely, find value in that. It's not limited, but it's not designed for them. So I don't want them to be disappointed.
Oh no, I'm sure they wouldn't be.
But you know what? There's a lot of officers that are parents. And I've had
Yes.
cases where I've had an officer's daughter who, he took the phone away, but she found a way to use an iPod and got on the internet and was chatting with a guy asking her for a nude photo. So,
Wow.
and he's a
Yeah.
cop, been a cop for a long time, didn't
We
realize.
truly don't know what's going on behind like the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
And I'm a step parent to a 7-year-old, and the other day he was mentioning TikTok, and I'm like, how does he even know about TikTok? But like when they go to school, they hear a lot of things, or they hear like YouTube or TikTok, and it just starts going, and it's like you said, it's getting younger and younger, and the tablets are in their hands like sooner and sooner, and they're like you said, they're going to find a way. They're always going to find a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things too. In addition to the conversations, there are companies out there that have a phone that looks like a smartphone and it has no internet on it at all. So that's like the ultimate protection.
Yeah.
These, it's Bark Technologies and Gab Wireless, GABB.
Okay.
Two different companies. They have smartwatches and phones. And really that is that in addition to the conversations and letting them know what to expect and how grooming happens, super important.
Yeah. Opening up the conversation. It can't hurt. It can only help. Right.
Well, and in my book, I flat out say if you don't have a conversation with your kid about sex and stuff, somebody will.
Somebody else will.
Another person that's got the bad intention. So
Yes, 100% agree. So I don't know if you're able to even narrow it down, but as of right now, what's the biggest risk we face in human trafficking?
well, I think it's well, the biggest risk for me in what I've recognized now that I've been doing this probably about 16 years now is that we're doing all this work to put these guys in jail, but they're continuing their business from in custody, in jail.
Wow. Yeah.
They've got not only phone calls, video visits, but now they have tablets. And I don't know if that's everywhere, but it's all over in Arizona.
I did see that. Yeah.
Not only the jail, but in the prison. And I know that if a kid, an officer's daughter, can get on an iPod and get on the internet, a hardened criminal, even though they swear they can't get on the internet on these tablets, they will definitely find a way. And I know they have because I could chop it up with a pimp right now that I put in prison for 108 years. He doesn't realize he's talking to me. It's one of my undercover personas. But I've already messaged with him. How is he able to do that if he can't get on the internet? So
Right.
I think what it is that we need to figure out a couple of things, not giving them the ability to do that. And then I've had another point to this.
Yeah.
4 pence that I put in prison, they've gone to prison and gotten back out and went right back to trafficking.
Yep.
So they didn't stop. They didn't get reformed. They didn't change their way in custody. And we're totally dropping the ball there.
Yes.
Because they go right back to it. And I know I cannot be the only detective that's experienced this 4 times now.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Because when they get out, that's all they know. That's what they've been doing for so long. And then the sheer access that they have been given now, it's like, there's TV shows on like Netflix and stuff of glorifying almost these prisoners who are in there for hard time, and they're, on TikTok or they're on Instagram and they have fan pages and people are sending them money and letters, and there's so much access now. Like we talked about earlier, like with a 7-year-old to someone that's in prison, the access is just like so unlimited now. I couldn't agree more with you. I don't know how they have tablets or do the FaceTime, but it's
it's a
absolutely
big
crazy.
mistake. It's a
Yeah.
huge mistake.
So you kind of touched on this too, but if I was like a parent watching this, what's like an easy safeguard that I could do to protect my child?
Well, definitely get either a Bark phone or a Gab wireless phone. Read my book, talk to them, have these
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah.
But also, realize that it is your job now as a parent to inform yourself about all these new things. Like on those two websites that I mentioned, Bark and Gab, they had blogs. And Bark for sure, in their blog, they literally will rate the danger level of these new apps. Like Saturn app is a new app that the schools were pushing in the beginning of the school year. I think it was last year or maybe it was this year. But it was an app that was designed for teachers to communicate with students and students to communicate with their peers. But I could create a profile on the Saturn app and I act like I'm in class, and then I have
Right.
kids to talk to. So you have to, as a parent now, keep informed on all of these apps. The school doesn't even realize. Maybe they do now because Bark wrote a nasty blog article about this app. But you have to keep up on all this stuff as a parent now. That's just part of the job.
Yeah. And I love that because it's like you can't just depend on teachers to teach your child the right thing. You have to, as a parent, look, research, do what you can do in order to educate your child. We can start by reading your book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, teachers have like all these, they have to have these assessments. And if they don't get to that level, they have to, do one-on-one training, tutoring and all kinds of, they have other obligations.
They have so much on their plate.
Yeah. It's not their job to monitor what your kid's doing on their phone or on their game. Right. That's its job. So totally. Super important.
Totally. So I have a lot of questions that I was sent in by my followers, and I know a lot of people are really excited to hear this interview. And honestly, it's given me more than I even was expecting. Like, I'm so excited for people to hear this. Yeah. But I'm going to just ask you some questions that I was sent in. Is Disneyland or Disney World really as unsafe as some people say it is?
I'm not sure about Disneyland. I saw that question when you sent it to me, and I was like,
there must be something like on TikTok or online saying something. I'm not sure.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that read into, movies on Disney or, there's some kind
underlying
of
messages and stuff.
Yes. And, there could be something going on. I don't personally know about any of that as far as Disney is concerned, but, there are concerns with the actual location of Disney and, there's lines and parents don't want to stand in line with their kids and you never know who they're standing with. And if those people are doing in-person grooming and getting personal information from that kid, including, their social media handles or their real name or where they live and how old they are, those kind of things. So, there's definitely a stranger danger with those in-person contacts that could be happening. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And have you heard, just to talk on that, because if you're like in Disney World, have you heard of like Apple AirTags? To like some people were saying they were putting them in their kid's shoe or something. How do you feel about that? It's kind of off topic, but I'm just wondering.
Well, no. So for specifically to human trafficking, a lot of people think that abductions are how this happens. And as we've been talking, it's really not that. It's more of the grooming and the social media contacts and that kind of thing. But, abductions could happen. And so if there is a way to add a layer of protection where you have the air tag in your child's shoe, I mean, I'm all for that for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's over the top because you never know. You never know. And with situational awareness as well, as prepared as you can be, that's the best.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay. Next question. What are some dangerous games my young child could be playing that I'm unaware about?
So I actually asked my son that question when he
Okay,
get
yeah.
because he's a gamer. He's 22 now, but he's played games forever.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where he literally said any game that's got an online platform and the ability for strangers to talk to you. And
Yeah.
that's where those conversations come in, where you tell your child to be prepared. Someone might come in and try and talk to you. They might ask you personal information about yourself. They might try and get you to move to a different platform where they can video chat with you. They might, do certain things. And that's all those things that I talk about in my book as far as the conversations to prepare them so that they recognize it when it's happening. And also, they go tell you about it as the parent.
Yes.
That's part of it.
That's a great point. It's like recognizing when it's happening. So it's like if they're getting this like weird message on their game, if we have already communicated with them about this stuff, they'll be like, oh, this looks weird, instead of thinking it's normal because we haven't had that conversation, and then showing us. That's like a huge point, because I know like even a lot of kids are playing like Roblox and stuff. They can send messages through there, or there's bad videos that pop up and things like that. So it's important for them to know that they can come to us, and instead of like wanting to hide it and be secretive about it.
Yeah. And you're not going to be in trouble. And that
Right.
this is why I want to know, because this has led to this. And, you could talk about other things you've learned from other parents or
Right.
saw on social media somewhere or whatever random examples you want to show to further the point that, this is happening and I want you to be able to see it and I want you to tell me about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely going to do that with my stepson. Okay, this was an interesting question that we got. Is there dangers for adults in dating apps?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of the undercover work I did was, I have 7 Facebooks, 4 Instagrams, tagged, Meet Me, Bumble, Plenty of Fish, Snapchat, Twitter, all in undercover personas. And a lot of that could also be recruitment from traffickers as well as sex buyers.
Yeah,
We do go on all of those platforms and attempt to recruit and groom adults as well as children, anyone with a vulnerability, really.
right, right. Because you're susceptible to it by putting yourself out there, saying like you're a single woman or a single man or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
showing that you're looking for something, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of cases where that's how the victim met the trafficker.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Um, where is a common place sex trafficking occurs? Is that too broad of a question, or?
No, as far as venues, there's street prostitution. Uh, and a lot of people don't realize, but in major cities, there's street prostitution. In Phoenix, we have several. They're called the track or the blade, which is a term describing that area. And, we have 5 blades, I think, in Phoenix alone, plus the other surrounding cities, Scottsdale, Mesa. And so it is street prostitution and then also online. And, if you've ever heard of Backpage.com, that used to be the platform, like the main classified for prostitution ads. And now that the SESTA FOSTA Act was signed by President Trump many years ago, 2018, I think it was, Backpage and then the adult services section of Craigslist got taken down. And now we have all these other little platforms that popped up. Mega Personal, Skip the Games, Adult Look, Adult Search, Escort Alligator, Escort Monkey. I don't make these names up, but this is what they are.
Wow.
And these platforms now are not in the United States, so they don't really care about our search warrant or our subpoena. It makes it a little bit harder for us to see who behind the scenes is posting these ads because these companies don't cooperate. But that's okay because we have other ways to follow up on these cases. But that is a venue. And then I would also say casinos.
Oh, interesting.
I've had several daddies where basically I've posed as a vulnerable prostitute and been recruited off of either my prostitution ad or my social media accounts, my undercover accounts, and I've had my pimp tell me to work the carpet and how to work the carpet, and that's a term he used or that is known by me as well for working the casino, because the carpet is, if you've watched the Travel Channel, that's intentionally busy and crazy looking because they want to up at all the slot machines and the tables. And so working the carpet at the casino. And then, obviously we've got major events. And when you have major events like Super Bowl and the golf tournaments and NBA All-Stars and World Series and all these events, those are events that a lot of men attend. And so traffickers bring their victims to locations where there's going to be And so it isn't that human trafficking is, Super Bowl doesn't cause human trafficking. It's just, it happens to be where men are. So
that's so interesting. The casino thing is very interesting, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can dress up like that and no one's looking at you in any certain way. There's a lot of people around. There's a lot of high stakes, high rolling. There's usually a hotel connected to the casino, and things are more normalized there. If it's a young girl with an older man, like no one's going to look like too much into it. And wow, that's so interesting. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
All right. Okay, back in. Sorry.
And we're back. You're good. All right, we'll continue with the questions. I have just 2 more for you.
Oh, okay.
2 more parent questions, and then I have like two final takeaways for you.
Okay.
I won't keep you all day, even though I feel like I feel like I've learned so much from you. Okay, so what are signs I could see, maybe like to anyone who's even not a police officer, if someone is at risk or is being trafficked? Is there anything visible that we can see?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a whole list if you missed this or want to know more on my website, my sex trafficking indicators list. But basically, there are a lot. There is obviously dressed provocatively, walking in a known area for prostitution if you happen to have that blade or street area. There's a certain, I've already talked about a couple of terms like blade and I think I've said some other, but there's a whole language to this where if someone is speaking a certain way, then unless you download my terminology list, which I also have, wouldn't know those words like reckless sideballing or out of pocket. There's terminology associated with this. So if someone is speaking that way and it's not normal for them to speak that way, that could be an indicator. In this lifestyle, if you've ever heard of the brand, there's tattoos.
The branding, yes. Yeah, like crowns.
Right. And so if you're in the line at the gas station, convenience store, and you see 3 people in front of you and they all have the same tattoo, that would be like a huge indicator that, these individuals might be victims of trafficking, because that's very intentional. Traffickers put their brand on victims, one, because they want to give them that sense of belonging. We're a family. Everyone outside is squares. That's what we are, law-abiding citizens. We're squares, and we're in the circle with our brand. But then 2, the second purpose is to advertise to other pimps. These ones are mine. I own mine. So the branding, tattoo, obviously if they have multiple cell phones, if they're at the counter and they're pulling out their debit card and they've got different hotel keys, and you're like, why do they have all these hotel keys? That's weird. Or, multiple hotel keys. Even, as a kid, if a kid has a hotel key or a phone that their parents didn't know about, even if it doesn't have service and they claim they just found it, you can get on the internet at Starbucks and, be communicating with
use their Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So even if it looks broken, cracked screen, if it can get on the internet, it's not something you want in your house. That's not something allowed here. Just a lot of obviously indicators that are, they're subtle, but if you combine a couple of them together, they're really concerning. And then, people need to know, well, okay, so now I've seen this. What do I do with this information? Do you know?
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. Do you know the phone number for your local law enforcement? Do you know when it's appropriate to call 911 or the non-emergency number? Do you know that there is a National Human Trafficking Hotline where you can report these things? The National Human Trafficking Hotline is in Washington, D.C., so it takes a little bit of time to get to the local law enforcement agency that would be investigating this. So if it's happening right now,
Right.
that would be a call to 911. And then some states like Arizona, we created our own human trafficking hotline. And so do you know if your state has one? And if so, do you know the phone number for it? So, but reporting is very important. And it isn't like you have to have a police car show up at your house with the uniform and all this, and your neighbors see all that. You can leave information on the phone, but leave your contact information, your phone number at least, so that we can ask you more questions, because you may have seen something else that we would want to know, like last known direction of travel, or did you see a particular vehicle, or those people match the description of someone we're looking for. How long ago was this? All these things. So that's my advice about that.
To piggyback off that, if you're an officer and you arrest a sex trafficker, but for something unrelated, like they had a warrant or they're, petty theft or whatever, but you notice like this branding on them, or you notice those signs when you're going through their property and they have those hotel keys and stuff like that. Like, as an officer, what would you recommend us to do if we're in a situation like that?
Yeah. So as far as that goes, obviously contact detective, see if they're even looking for this person. Try and find out their moniker name, because a lot of these victims only know their trafficker, and that's by design. They don't want them to know, because then if
Like
they
a nickname, right?
Yeah. So their nickname, King whatever, Mac Daddy, whatever it is. Try and get them to admit that to you, that they go by this other name, and document that. Document those tattoos, take pictures of them, any gang affiliation, obviously. And then in the contents of their property, document what they have. Photographs, even if it looks like a Cash App card and it has no name on it. Take photos of the Cash App card and the backside, because what we're doing now, obviously, is instead of basing our cases on victims, because they could change their mind, because some of these cases take 1, 2, 3, 5 years to go to trial or get resolved in any way, and they dip out and change their mind, and our whole case goes away. So now I'm trying to teach, in one of my classes that I offer, is money laundering and illegal enterprise, and going after these traffickers financially, so that alongside a victim-based case, you are going after the financials. And part of that is that contents of that suspect's property right there.
Right. Wow. Okay. And you're starting a portfolio for your agency too. It's like, oh, this other girl we arrested, whenever she had the same tattoo and the same like nickname, and then it kind of all comes together. So yeah,
I've built a whole case based off of jail intelligence, listening to jail calls of girls in custody, all calling the same phone number, calling that trafficker daddy, and then looking at their criminal history, contacts with law enforcement, been a prior arrest for prostitution, these dates. Then I look at his financials, and lo and behold, here's these ads, and here he is receiving money those days. You know what I mean? And then we do our deals after the fact, and I have a whole case wrapped up.
Right.
Just because of good work from patrol and documentation.
And this isn't like a job for someone who likes the quick fix, someone who's like needs like that immediate like closed case. Like you said, this takes a long time to actually come to fruition.
Yeah, I've had a case last 5 years.
Yeah.
That's okay, and that's what detective work is.
Right. Okay, last question from my followers is, and we've kind of touched on this, but maybe just advice from you. How can I be a good parent without being too overbearing on my child?
I think what it is not something you can start late. Like, if you're going to start making all these changes and they're already 17 years old, you can try, but it may not go well. This needs to be a learned behavior as they're growing up. These things all have to be happening. And, you won't know that unless you educate yourself and inform yourself early on as a young, early parent. Yeah, it is definitely something to continue on. These are not conversations that happen only once. They're repeated. You can be in the car driving to, soccer practice and talk about something you heard on social media and make it be like about someone else. Not that your kid's doing this, but hey, did you know I heard this kid got in trouble for this, or they sent a nude image and then it got on the internet and it can't get taken down because once you post something online, it never goes away, those kind of things. And have these conversations growing up and just a learned behavior of your expectations.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, list it out every now and again. Because my son, like I said, he's 22 now, but when he was 11, I caught him online talking to a stranger because there's no expectation of privacy in my house. I walk in the room, I will look at what you're doing on the computer. I will take your phone out of your hand. I pay for that phone. I will always have the password to that phone. I will always have the code. This is my house, my rules. So it has to be that way.
Okay, so now you're making me think. So what would you say, is it okay or bad to like secretly message like your child on a game and see if they engage and like
I've encouraged parents to open up their own undercover social media and friend their child and see through their friend list, because sometimes it's blocked unless you're a friend. Have another secret social media that you don't even know about, because it's really easy to do.
Like the fence does and all the fake profiles.
Yeah. And that's, especially if the unfortunate situation happens where they run away. You may track them on your undercover social media to the other social media. It's just, it's one of those things that we have to do now.
And it would be probably very humbling for your child to realize that who they've been talking to was you. And they'd be like, oh my God. Hopefully that would help in the future to know, like, you really don't know who you're talking to.
Yes.
You really have no idea. Because I remember being young and going to my friend's house, and she was like allowed to be in chat rooms. And we thought it was like so sneaky, but like fun to be in the chat rooms. And I still, as a 32-year-old woman, vividly remember going to one specific friend's house whose parents didn't really look. And we would go in the chat rooms. And I don't know who we were talking to or whatever. This was back when like AIM, was big. And thinking back on it, it's like, wow, like the situations that we could have all put ourselves in just on like online screen names, chatting. It's just wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So where do you see your career going from here? If it can even go bigger than where you are, you seem like, you're like me, Capricorn, go big or go home, keep going, never stop. Where do you see yourself going from here? Is there any thing that you're working on or any takeaways from your career?
Yeah. So I am, I'm trying to live that second pension life. So I still work for another law enforcement agency.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're just working around the clock.
Well, I mean, I retired and I was 44 years old and I was like, I have a whole half of my life still left to live. What do I want to do when I grow up? This is what I know. So second pension is a good idea. And then obviously my side business. But to expand my side business, I am a nationally recognized presenter for the National Criminal Justice Training Center at Fox Valley Technical College. If you've ever taken any Fox Valley classes, Amber Alert program. But they only call me every now and again. And so that's kind of dying out. And so I want to take myself, the chanceforawareness.com, to agencies across the United States. I want to get agencies who think they're too small to do these undercover operations to pursue doing those, even if they have to borrow, the county guys or the next municipality police agency next door, and you guys all work together. Right. Some of these undercover operations aren't that manpower intensive. They really aren't. And so part of my goal is, and my business, besides the whole community outreach, and we talked about that, but on the law enforcement side, I have all these classes I've developed, besides the undercover female school that I actually have coming up in September. I have, basic patrol recognition and response, interviewing victims, interrogating suspects, putting these cases together. That's a full 8-hour day. And then coaching agencies. Like I had an agency in Pennsylvania hire me to do a training with their female undercovers. So that was that female undercover school I did prior to the one coming up in September. And then they also, when they do their actual operation, I'm there consulting them, whether I'm in person or available virtually, to get on a call during the night of their operation, make myself available. And hey, we got this high profile person, the city council member we just arrested. What do we do now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
often.
amazing.
Or we have this pimp that showed up that was trying to recruit our decoy off of an ad. What do we do? You know what I mean? Those kind of things.
Yeah.
So being available to really do the consulting. A lot of people say they're a consultant or a coach. Coaching what? I don't know. But I would actually coach how to do undercover operations and do that training. And then also public speaking. Like I want to do a TED Talk.
You definitely should.
Trying to do a TED Talk. And then I want to present to companies. Like I'm an informational speaker. There's a lot of people who do motivational speaker conferences and like Intel or, tech companies, or literally there's parents there. There are people there that need to know about human trafficking, and
100%.
I'm just trying to break into that scene really and get to the level of, after my second pension and I'm vested and I want to step down from that, be a public speaker and travel around and do even internationally public speaking about human trafficking. And it doesn't have to be limited to just law enforcement.
Yeah. And I think that
dreams.
there's such a need. Yeah. There's such a need. Because now, we're open up like to do a lot more like informational meetings at our PD. Like recently we had someone come in and talk about like mental health and things like that. Like there is so much that I learned just from that if you came into like my PD or anyone's PD and just talked about like even what we talked about today, like the value of us, even just like we mentioned, like the road patrol cops, like some of us feel like we're just, the initial response, officer, and we just send our case off and that's it. But I think the value that a lot of road patrol officers can learn from today or from you too is like their reports really matter. The details matter, like noticing certain signs and letting your detectives know that stuff matters. So like it's a whole line of response to basically get to where you need to get in order to like make a change. So
well, and I don't know if when you were in the academy, did you have a class on human trafficking at your agency?
You know what? I don't remember. It was like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's not good that I don't remember,
Well,
So,
and that's just it. I definitely didn't in 1998 when I was in the academy. It was literally drugs and gangs. You know what I mean? So
you really did on gangs.
Yeah. You have a whole bunch of cops out there that have never even thought about human trafficking. And I caught alive a pimp did, and I recorded it, and I show it when I teach about this because I want you to get pissed off that these pimps are bragging that you do not see them.
Right. They're trolling us. They're totally trolling us.
Yeah.
They know exactly.
And they're not half wrong because you didn't get trained by your agency if you ever had a class on human trafficking, but you need to start seeing them. And so that's what's so important about this patrol recognition class that I have, because you need to recognize in a vehicle stop, you may have a
100%.
And they're going to be super nice to you. Go ahead and search my car, officer, because they're not worried about being caught with anything as long as they control the mouth of that victim and that victim doesn't say anything to you. You can go ahead and search my car and then have a nice day. I'll take my ticket, whatever. And then I'll laugh at it because you didn't see me.
Yeah. It's so much deeper than like, and I know it is, we all know it's deeper. That's why I said in the beginning, it's a lot of people don't want to touch it because it goes so deep. But, man, even just for parents, like you said, just to start at a young age, like it could change the course of a lot of things. If our parents talk to our children and they don't, that hurts the pimp because then he has less people to work with, and from there. But
that's the whole goal, is to hurt the pimp.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any final takeaways you can leave us with? And then I'm going to ask you about like how to download your your terminology and all that stuff, and where to get your book and where to follow you. But
Yeah.
for our conversation, for anybody listening, is there any final takeaways you want them to take from this conversation?
Yeah. So basically, we talked about so much.
We
But
did. I feel like I should pay you. Like, this is amazing. I feel like I just had a private, like, I don't know. This is awesome.
no, it's one of those things, just to reiterate again that we have more work to do. Just like officers need to continually educate themselves and continually take training and classes and evolve with all these crimes. Parents need to continually educate themselves about all these new apps and the ways that these things are happening, and believe that it's really happening that way, because these myths that you see, like I have a friend of mine who sent me a video of an influencer talking about a shopping cart left by her car door, and is this human trafficking? She was making fun of it kind of, and it's not funny. And that is definitely not the way that I have ever been informed about a trafficking situation. But there are people that are making stuff up and kind of diluting the concern for this. And it is very concerning. And we really need to not believe the myths or, people trying to say it's one thing for sure. It's definitely not. It happens in different ways. And to educate yourself about how it's happening for real instead of believing Instagram.
Right. 100%. So if anyone listening wants to like download any of your indicators or buy your book or follow you, or if someone working at a PD wants to hire you, what's the best way to get all those things or get in contact with you? I know there's like a CVS receipt of all your stuff.
Yeah.
But if you think
I'm really trying to be a resource. So I have my website at chanceforawareness.com, and linked on my Instagram, like in your bio, I have my freebies, all my handouts. So I have my sex trafficking indicators list. I have a empowering conversations, like starter, like kind of a summary of my whole book, but a free resource there. I have tips for parents and teens. And then when you obviously have contact with me and I do a class, that's when I give out the terms, because I don't want to give out the terms to the public, because I don't want to available everywhere. So that is only for if like I, instructed you a certain way. And I also have like a resource for officers. I've got a pimp MO, like it's a whole pimp modus of operandi. Like traffickers always do this, traffickers do that. And I put it in my search warrants. So I have that as a resource for officers when I teach about the putting the case together type of thing. And then additionally for the victim interviewing class that I do with officers, I have a whole, I don't even know how many pages of list of questions to ask. Like I always ask victims to define what a pimp is. That's one of the questions I ask, because I want them in their own words to define what a pimp is. And usually they're loyal to their trafficker and they aren't, forthcoming with recognizing that the things that I'm saying a pimp does, this person did to me. And so by their own words, their own definition of an asshole that takes all your money. Oh, so this guy beat you up and he took your money, but you're not working for a pimp. You know what I mean? So it's whole questions that, help you if you're interviewing these victims to think to ask. That's available if you take one of my classes. So, I have lots of things like that. But as far as my book is available in ebook or in print book form. The ebook is either on Amazon or on my website, and the print book is on Amazon. You just search "Talk to Them" or my name, and then it'll come up. And then my online class that I'm doing in September is specific to female officers. Of course, I'll take their supervisors and their prosecutors. But it's one of those where I need you to send me your commission card so I know that you're a sworn officer. It's not for everybody, and it's a virtual training. It's about 3 hours long, and I literally have all these videos of me with several buyers, like what are they going to do when they expose themselves to you, or ask you to expose themselves, or they take off running, or you're standing outside of a car and they reach and grab you. If you're being recruited by a trafficker, how to have a conversation, because that's a different type of conversation than with a buyer. What if they try to trip you to another location? All kinds of things. And then I talk through you know, bad stuff that's happened, operations that we did not do right, how we set up a hotel room for officer safety, all kinds of things. So
Very cool.
really, really part of that undercover school that I'm super excited to do in September for any female officer that wants to sign up for that. It's on my website already today. Just
So we can
posted.
sign up for it on your website, the
Yes.
virtual training? Okay, amazing. I'll put that out there for my followers and everything, but I plan to sign up for it too. So I'm really excited.
Good.
Yeah. But thank you so much. You gave me personally so much information. And I know that the people listening, a lot of them are officers, but a lot of them are parents and just people who are support law enforcement too. So I think it's just great for everyone to know like what's honestly going on, like the real realities of our world. But thank you so much for meeting with me today. I really, really appreciate it. You are like such a boss lady. You are so inspiring. I
Thank
hope
you.
I can like have my CVS receipt like you one day. But thank you so, so much. And I look forward to everyone hearing all your information.
Absolutely. I've had a blast too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
I'm going to